There are 9 words posted on Truth Social this morning that no American president has ever said about any country on earth in the history of the Republic. 9 words that appeared on a government-linked social media account attributed to the sitting president of the United States on a Tuesday morning in April, while his own military was conducting strikes on an island that handles 90% of a nation's oil exports, while Iranian civilians were forming human chains around power plants to shield them with their bodies, while the UN Secretary General was on record saying that attacking those plants would be a clear violation of international law, while Pakistan was desperately asking for a 2-week extension to keep the negotiations alive, while oil was trading above $112, while the EIA was projecting American gas at $4.30 per gallon this month. 9 words. Read them slowly. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Not a military target, not a regime, not a government, a civilization, the entirety of a country's history, culture, language, architecture, science, art, and humanity described as something that will die tonight. And on the same day those 9 words were posted, in a conference room in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, a man who spent 13 years running the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, who has never posted an expletive on social media in his life, who declined to join this war and has been building trade alliances on 4 continents while it raged, stood at a podium and said 11 words of his own that are the most important 11 words spoken by any leader in the Western world today. That means not targeting certainly civilians or civilian infrastructure. 11 words: calm, legal, precise, devastating, and more powerful than any ultimatum. Hit that subscribe button right now and smash the bell notification, because what is happening today between Trump and Carney is not a news story. It is a defining moment in the history of North American leadership, and it is happening in real time, with a deadline of 8 o'clock tonight Eastern Time, with Kharg Island burning, with Iranians forming human chains around power plants, with the UN Security Council deadlocked after China and Russia vetoed the Hormuz resolution, and with a former central banker from Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, standing at a podium in Brampton, Ontario, drawing the most important red line any Canadian Prime Minister has drawn since the Second World War. Subscribe. Hit the bell. We are building the complete picture right now. Let us establish the precise timeline of what happened today, because the sequence matters enormously for understanding why Carney's response was not just morally significant, but strategically brilliant. This morning, Trump posted on Truth Social the following: "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." That post appeared hours after the United States military conducted fresh strikes on Kharg Island, confirmed by a White House official to CBS News, CNN, and NBC News. Kharg Island, a small piece of land about 20 miles off Iran's northern Gulf coast, roughly 1/3 the size of Manhattan, is the hub through which approximately 85 to 95% of Iran's crude oil is exported. It is the most strategically concentrated oil export facility on the planet. The United States has struck it before, with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Dan Kane saying weeks ago that all military-only infrastructure on the island had been obliterated. Today's strikes hit it again, with witnesses on the ground describing attacks as intense, if not more intense, than those in March. Iranian media reported multiple explosions. The British military's Maritime Trade Operations Center reported a container ship hit by an unknown projectile off the coast of nearby Kharg Island. At least 18 civilians were killed in one Iranian province alone, according to Iranian officials. Iran called on all young people to form human chains around power plants in anticipation of strikes on civilian electrical infrastructure. Pakistan's prime minister, acting as mediator, asked Trump to extend his deadline by 2 weeks. Trump said he was in heated negotiations, but did not commit to an extension. And the United States Energy Information Administration released updated forecasts today, projecting American gas prices to peak at $4.30 per gallon this month, with diesel and heating costs continuing to climb. That is the world in which Mark Carney walked to a podium in Brampton, Ontario at approximately 11 o'clock this morning and was asked directly by a reporter about Trump's statement that a whole civilization would die tonight. And his answer, confirmed word for word by CBC News, CTV News, the Canadian Press, and the Globe and Mail, was this: that means not targeting certainly civilians or civilian infrastructure. He did not call Trump a war criminal. He did not use the phrase war crime, which was left to Kenneth Roth, the former executive director of Human Rights Watch, who told NBC News that Trump is openly threatening collective punishment, targeting not the Iranian military, but the Iranian people, and that collective punishment of civilians during armed conflict is a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Carney did not say those words. What he said was more strategic. He said that he expects all parties in this conflict to respect international law. That means not targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure. And he said something else that every American watching this video needs to hear carefully. There is often a gap between what's said publicly and what's happening privately. He was talking about Trump. He was saying, in the language of central bankers and experienced negotiators who never show their hand, that he has seen this pattern before. The ultimatum, the escalation, the expletives, and then the extension, the deal, the walkback, the taco. What Carney drew today was not just a moral red line, it was a strategic assessment delivered as a legal principle, and it is the most sophisticated piece of public communication any leader has produced in response to "a whole civilization will die tonight." Drop a comment right now and tell me what you felt when you read Trump's words this morning. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. A political analyst quoted on NBC News described those words as the way the monsters of history speak. The former executive director of Human Rights Watch said they constitute an open threat of collective punishment, which is a war crime under the Fourth Geneva Convention. The UN Secretary General has already said on record that attacking power plants would be a clear violation of international law. China and Russia vetoed the Security Council resolution today. At least 18 civilians have been killed in one Iranian province this morning alone, and Carney stood at a podium and said that not targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure is what respecting international law means. What do you think? Is Carney saying what needs to be said? Is he saying enough? Is he saying it in the right way? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because this channel exists to have exactly this conversation. Now let us talk about Kharg Island, because the strategic significance of what was bombed today cannot be overstated, and it connects directly to why Canada's position in this war matters so profoundly to every American paying $4.30 at the pump. Kharg Island handles 85 to 95% of Iran's crude oil exports. It is connected to the Iranian mainland by underwater pipelines that carry crude from the country's vast oil fields to the island's loading terminals, where tankers have historically loaded for export to China, South Korea, Japan, India, and Europe. Before the war began on February 28th, Iran was producing approximately 3 million barrels per day, most of which moved through Kharg. The United States has been striking military targets on the island since March, with the stated goal of degrading Iran's ability to use the island's assets as part of its blockade strategy. Today's strikes were described by witnesses as among the most intense of the entire war, and every barrel of Iranian crude that cannot move through Kharg because of those strikes is a barrel that the global market must find somewhere else. The IEA has said 12 million barrels per day have been lost from global supply since the war began. The Hormuz closure alone accounts for approximately 20% of global seaborne oil. The strikes on Kharg compound the disruption by targeting the specific infrastructure Iran uses to manage what little export activity it has maintained. And every day that Kharg is further degraded, the premium on stable, reliable, rule-of-law oil supply from a country that is not at war, not under sanctions, and not threatening to wipe out civilizations on Truth Social gets larger. That country is Canada. That pipeline is Trans Mountain. That CEO is Mark Carney, who confirmed at CERAWeek in Houston that the 890,000 barrel per day pipeline is running in the high 90s as a percentage of utilization, because Asian buyers desperately seeking non-Gulf crude are booking every available cargo. The strikes on Kharg Island today are not just a military event. They are a market event, and they are happening on the same day the EIA said American gas is going to $4.30. Picture what is happening right now on Kharg Island, that piece of land about 1/3 the size of Manhattan, 20 miles off Iran's northern Persian Gulf coast, as the 8 o'clock deadline approaches tonight. The loading terminals where tankers have docked for decades to take on Iranian crude are silent. The underwater pipelines that connect the island to the mainland are not moving oil to export. The strikes have degraded the military infrastructure that Iran has used to enforce its effective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian civilians who have been called upon by their government to form human chains around power plants are standing in the dark, linking arms, surrounding the generators and turbines and transformers that power their homes and hospitals and schools, hoping that the president of a country they have never threatened and never attacked will decide that a deal is more politically useful than the destruction of a civilization. That is the image of April 7th, 2026. Iranians forming human chains around power plants. And Carney at a podium in Brampton, Ontario, saying that not targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure is what respecting international law means. And Trump on Truth Social saying a whole civilization will die tonight. 3 images, 3 leaders, 3 visions of what this moment demands. You can decide which one history will judge most harshly, and you can decide which one you want your country associated with. Now let us connect all of this to the USMCA deadline that is now 84 days away, because the stakes of today are not only humanitarian and moral, they are strategic and economic in the most direct and measurable way. The president who is threatening to wipe out a civilization tonight is the same president who will sit across the table from Canada's trade negotiators on July 1st. His approval rating is 35% and falling. His Fox News disapproval is at 59%, a record high. His Iran war handling approval is at 33%. Among independents, it is 22%. Gas is heading to $4.30. Kharg Island is burning. The UN Security Council is deadlocked. Pakistan is begging for a 2-week extension. And Carney is in Brampton, Ontario, drawing a red line on international law in 11 words, while managing a country that is running its pipeline at full capacity, has 12 trade deals on 4 continents, hit NATO at 2%, is receiving a potential $90 billion oil windfall, and has 84 days to the most important trade negotiation in North American history. The political pressure differential between the 2 leaders heading into July 1st is not comparable. It has never been less comparable. And today, the day Trump said a civilization will die tonight, and Carney said all parties must respect international law and not target civilians, made that differential larger, not smaller. This is what the complete picture looks like when you assemble every verified fact from today. Trump's 9 words, a whole civilization will die tonight. Carney's 11 words. That means not targeting certainly civilians or civilian infrastructure. Kharg Island, bombed 85 to 95% of Iranian oil exports 20 miles off Iran's coast. Gas price, $4.30 projected by the EIA this month. Trans Mountain, 890,000 barrels per day, high 90s utilization, Asian buyers booking every available cargo. UN Security Council, deadlocked, China and Russia vetoed. Pakistan, asking for a 2-week extension. Trump approval, 35%. USMCA deadline, 84 days. And Mark Carney, standing at a podium in Brampton, Ontario, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, the man who never blinked at 14 months of annexation threats and trade war and tariff escalation, saying 11 words that are worth more than any ultimatum, any expletive, any Truth Social post, any power plant day threat, or any 9-word declaration that a civilization will die tonight. The gap between what is said publicly and what is happening privately, as Carney himself said today, is where every deal eventually gets made. And the man who understands that gap better than anyone in this confrontation is not the one posting on Truth Social. He is the one standing calmly at a podium in Ontario, drawing the red line that history will remember. Share this video right now with every American who deserves to understand what their president said today, what the Canadian Prime Minister said in response, what is burning on Kharg Island, what is happening to the price of gas, and what all of it means for the trade negotiation that is 84 days away. Share it with every person in your life who has been told the pressure campaign is working and Canada has nowhere to go. A whole civilization will die tonight. Not targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure is what respecting international law means. 2 statements, 2 men, 1 deadline. Share this.